flirting with all the time. When I saw the pie face, I knew it was a pie face. I'm a journalist by profession. I knew it was a pie face, but I was hoping somewhere along the line was shooting something. Because I felt it, and also when I saw the pie face, I saw the mother with such a passion for his son who was hoping for the future, and I saw this video flying to different places and so forth. And I'm happy that Miles picked them up and made it happen.
Good afternoon, everybody. Hey, how you guys doing? So, how many of you remember this advert? Okay, so more people. So I'm a systems engineer by training. I was working at Microsoft at the time, traveling the world, getting paid really, really well. And every time I came back, guys, extension, my mom calls it Deep expensive. I'd always hear the kids going, "Oh, Vuyo is such a big dreamer." I was like, "Who's this Vuyo guy?" So I probably Googled to discover there was no Vuyo, totally a fictitious character, dreamt up by this advertising agency in Cape Town, I think after smoking some green stuff. So I probably came up with the word Vuyo. I quit my high-paid job, and I went to sell bonobos rolls at the local Foy's farmers market. I remember telling my mother that and she's a single parent, I remember telling her that I'm leaving this high-paid job to go sell bonobos rolls. She was like, "Oh, Danny, what about your medical age and pension?" She really doesn't sound like that. I learned a very important lesson early on, that people often don't do epic things because of fear, and often it's not even your own fear, it's other people's fear. This was my mom, more worried about what her neighbors were going to think than anything else. But I realized that that wasn't my fear, it was hers. But ironically, it was the same woman who used to say to me, "Don't be an also-ran in life. If 5,000 people set out to run a marathon, 4,999 of them are there to serve to legitimize the winner. They are desperate that there's a number one." She said, "Go out and change your goal, stand for something and be somebody." And I remember thinking to myself, "Play of you, woman, I'm only 3 years old." But I guess maybe it was that sense of purpose that stuck with me, that made me do this when others didn't. Because clearly everybody had exactly the same piece of information. This advert flighted everywhere, but I was the one who did something about it. Then the other thing I realized when I started was I didn't know how to start anything. I studied to master's level, but there was no point where I went to a class that was called Start 101. No one gets taught to start on anything. It's assumed you know how to start. So I had to figure that one out, and the logical way I did it was I didn't overthink it. You know, it turns out to start, you just start. And that's exactly what I did. And I went to the local Foy's farmers market. That grill over there, that thing, we bought it on that day. I remember arriving at the market, and my first executive decision was to remove the stand, the legs, the braai stand had legs. And my first executive decision was to remove the legs. And the reason for that, and why I remember it so well, was that firstly, it was my first decision as an entrepreneur, but it was something that was instilled within us at Microsoft. They always said, have your customer front and center. Be as closest to your customer, but always have them in front and center. So I thought if the grill was behind, I would be cooking with my back to my customer. I'm not running an orchestra, so that's what the DJ said. So I want to be in front of my customer. So I removed the stand. As I'm about to put the stand on the table, I realized that the table is made out of wood. Now, this is not rocket science what we are doing here. We're cooking with gas, and so what we did was, we found, you know, one of those concrete slabs, those concrete block things, those walking stepping stones. We put that between the grill and the table to start cooking, and we start pumping. This is week number 5. Peter, the guy in the previous picture, turns around to me, says, "Mom, we're on fire." I go, "I know, look at the crowd." No, we're on fire. Turns out we forgot to put that concrete slab between the table and the grill. The table put our lights, creating these massive flames, and these flames were melting the shade netting above us, which I realized was made out of plastic, so it was melted, creating massive flames, and the flames were very long. Now I looked down on the floor, I realized the flames made out of wood chips. Very indeed. It was lit, as the young people would say. But I subsequently studied as a chef, and one of the things we learn in culinary school is that things don't always go according to plan. And as an entrepreneur, I've taken that to heart, is that keep it moving. Right? If you want to make an omelet, crack some eggs and be comfortable that you're going to have to crack a lot of them, and especially in food, because food, I make it for you every time you come to eat. So it's not like I'm making a widget that I put in a warehouse. Every time we have to feed you, we have to make you the food real time. So a lot of things can go wrong. Think about how many points of failure there can be in making somebody a meal, right? And also can get you sick. So there's repercussions of getting it wrong. So, but the other thing was that in learning that you keep going, I applied that same lesson to the products we made. I made sure that, in fact, if you can see there in the middle, that was our first Boerewors roll, the one in the middle. It had my mom's secret recipe chakalaka. That thing, I know it looks dodgy, but it used to be amazing. It pumps that thing. And then we got two others because one product doesn't make it the summer, so we needed to have other SKUs. So we added other products. And what we would do, we would take the revenue of our top 2 selling Boerewors rolls to improve our least selling one for that weekend. So that allowed us to continuously innovate our products, because every weekend, the one that sold the least, we took the money from the ones that sold the best, and we iterated, improved. And in fact, it turns out that was also subliminally a lesson I learned at Microsoft. Always be innovating. Innovation is not an end state, it's something we do on the go regularly. So what we would do is that over time, as you can see, the Boerewors roll started improving on the top right-hand corner, and at the bottom, I think those were version 3. By the time we got to this one, I think this was version 9. You can tell I'm recovering tech bro, everything for these version updates. In fact, again, this is at Microsoft, don't wait until the product is perfect. Launch it at 75% perfect, and then you get your customers to pay for the improvements and call it software updates. So that's exactly what we did. So by the time we got to this version, we used all our customers' money. And in fact, the innovation was so slight and maybe consequential to you, but the fact that we figured out that if you cut the Boerewors roll vertically like this, because of the base of the roll, because it sits in the pan in the oven, it's more solid at the base. Right? As opposed to cutting it horizontally, because if you start it that way, it falls apart. But if you do it this way, it keeps the stuffing inside. Doesn't seem like magic to you, but to us it was a game changer. But the biggest game changer was figuring out that if you sprinkle some sesame seeds on it, all the hipsters would love us. By the time we go to this Boerewors roll, we're selling it at $115 a Boerewors roll. And the hipsters, and the hipsters, the guys in the shiny beards, they come up to us and we go, yo dude, is it gluten free? I'm like, yo dude, at $115 is whatever you want it to be. So, turns out sesame seeds, who knew? And then, of course, I didn't start at the local voice farmers market to end at the market. I wanted to stand like this and say, look, Ma, I made it. I wanted to have a bricks and mortar restaurant like every entrepreneur. And when I found this site in Braamfontein, I remember hearing the angels and the harps, that, oh! I was like, yeah, you can print money there. I was super excited. When we found it on the 12th of the 12th of the 12th, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, I thought that was a great binary moment. We were to print money there. And then we opened the doors on the 26th of December, day after Christmas, Boxing Day. So we got 4 snow machines and we made it snow, and it was overcast. So people were eating porkies on grocery, it was packed, the energy was amazing. And like it kept on snowing, or the snow machines kept on making it snow, kept on tripping the power, but I didn't care, and everyone was having a great time. And then on the 27th of December, not a single customer. All the schools are back in KZN, the courses are there. There's no one in Braamfontein in December. So I'm sitting there, my tables are here white like corporate South Africa, and I'm thinking, wait, how did I get here? And my staff is looking at me like, and I don't know what to do. But it turns out leadership is like being a parent. One of the things you discover as a parent is that your parents didn't know what they were doing. They know how to. They just knew how to figure things out. In fact, that's what leadership is figuring things out. And almost everything is figure outable. So I picked up the phone, I called the Sunday Times, and I said, listen, would you be interested in hearing about how we made it snow in the middle of an African summer? The journalist I picked up said, man, and he hung up. So I have nothing else to do, so I started writing this article about how we made it snow in the middle of an African summer and how the restaurant was packed, people were eating umushu, and I used all these big words, I embellished, I used this byline PDF, I texted people, I emailed it to him. I did get a call about 30 minutes later from the journalist, and he asked me 1 or 2 questions at that point, and I'm thinking maybe we made it to page 189 on the Sunday Times, and there's a very big one in December, right? And guess what? That Sunday, I get a call from Robbie Rosen, the founder of Nando's, we were on the front page of the Sunday Times. So I run out to get to the Sunday Times, and the first time I found out what SAB, the brand that we took voyeurs from, thought about what we had done was when I read it on the newspaper. I'm not sure if you can see that bullet point there in the corner. That was the only thing the journalist wrote. Turns out though, it was some good investigative journalism because I wrote everything else. I wrote that everything. The only thing he wrote was the bullet point, the last paragraph. And it turns out he did do some investigative journalism because he called SAP and he said, listen, there's this guy called Miles. He's taking your brand, he's opening restaurants. What do you guys think about it? And SAP went, meh, good luck to him. If he's got the heart, the boldness to do it, good luck. I'm paraphrasing. But the point that I learned from that exercise was that in life, it is often better to ask for forgiveness than it is to ask for permission. Now, this is a tough thing to tell to risk people, but it's the truth. And I've run my business that way. I rather my teams ask for forgiveness than for permission. Because people who act, like one of the things as a CEO of a business, all you end up becoming is a chief escalation officer. Right? It's just a distillation of escalations. No one wants to do anything. Everybody's escalating, right? So all I'm doing is just dealing with the constellation of escalation. I rather the people who are closest to the problem deal with the problem. Because they are closest to the problem and they're feeling the pressure. By the time it gets to me, I'm so far from the problem, I'm so removed from the problem, and I don't have the same urgency as they do. And they're the closest one to the customer. So I like to empower people closest to the problem to come up with the solutions. So, and this played itself quite well when I was in a big radio interview. It turns out journalists generally are lazy, except you, of course. To look for Ikanda is so difficult, it lands on your lap, right? But for novice or innovative stories, they're harder to find. So by me writing my story and putting it out there, other journalists started picking it up after it made it to the front page of the Sunday Times. So all of a sudden, it was in the media cycle. And once you get into a media cycle, everybody's calling you. Because you have to balance the bad news with some good news, right? So one of the things that the journalists do when you are in a radio talk show, they say, let's open the lines for some callers. Yo! Do you sweat bullets when they do that? Because I don't know what my customers are going to say or whoever's going to call. I mean, like I said, I make food. Every day it could go sideways, right? And then this caller calls and says, yeah, man, I was there by your food truck. I couldn't decide what I wanted to eat. You had these 3 Boros rolls. I wanted this one and then I wanted this one. But the other one was so great. And then I wanted all of them. And then your guy just cut them into thirds and ate me one. Now, I've never taught any of my team members to do that, but because they felt so empowered and they knew that they could ask for forgiveness, for permission, and look where I was on national radio, I'm getting an amazing review from a customer that I had nothing to do with. So I know for a fact that if you empower people closest to the problem, they're the right ones who come up with those solutions. And most importantly, you end up looking good. And even if that solution is not a good one, even if that solution ends up sideways than it was intended, you can track and trace whether the intention was good. So I don't mind if the net result is bad, but as long as the intention was good, what you tried to do was good, and you made a call with great intentions, I'd rather have you than someone who's learned to be helpless, someone who just sits there and keeps escalating things, right? So I know this to work for a fact. So before I knew it, more radio and TV interviews, and an interesting thing, when I appropriated the SAP brand without compensation, they spent about 40 million rand on the ad campaign. By the time I finished doing the free press and media, I increased the brand equity by another 60 million rand. So I owned a brand that was worth 100 million rand, and I hadn't spent a single cent on advertising. And then started meeting some interesting people. That's Sir Richard Branson to you, Rich to me, because that's how I roll. And others wanted to take selfies with me. I'm like, chill. When you picked up I met the president, it was just after the time with the sofa and the money. So I asked him, how's things going? He said, so far so good. So funny guy that. But interestingly, Braamfontein, like I said, was a tough place to put a restaurant. It closes for 4 months of the year because it's a student town. And started business to break even, and that's what we're doing. Essentially, we're struggling there. In fact, we're failing, to put it by any other word. Now they call it pivoting and make it sound sensible, we're failing. And I think as a black entrepreneur, it's harder to be failing because you can almost feel or hear people thinking, yeah, kind of thing. Even if they're not saying it, you feel it, right? And so yeah, we're proper failing, and the thing that no one tells you about failure, it actually physically hurts. It's actually painful, like viscerally. And so I didn't know what to do, but again, leadership is about figuring things out, and we would watch all the videos, Hansa adverts, and they were all on YouTube. And you guys come to a straight session like this. I didn't have the money, so we watched the YouTube videos and we realized that we started with the hot dog carts and we'd skipped that step. We went from the market to the bricks and mortar restaurant. So I thought maybe we should build a cart. A cart is 25K, it turns out, and a bricks and mortar restaurant is like 3.5 million rand. So I don't have 3.5 million rand to build another restaurant. And even if I did, I didn't have the gall to do that again, right? I didn't trust myself that I thought this particular site was going to bring money and here we were struggling, right? So imposter syndrome was real. So then I realized that South Africa is got an amazing natural resource of young unemployed youths. I was like, 25K cards, plenty of young unemployed people, that seems like a marriage made in heaven, right? And our business is not rocket science. So I found these young unemployed youths, we gave them these amazing bright green polo t-shirts, proper, the genuine stuff, not the Chinese stuff that ends up looking like this and you wash your car with. You know, the corporate stuff, corporate gear is always the dodgy stuff. We gave them the proper quality stuff, right? And that turned out to be a stroke of genius because my view was I should give people what I would wear, right? And that turned out to be a stroke of genius because when we did that and we removed the polo brand, we put Voyonnais instead. Second stroke of genius, because when we gave them the shirts, they started standing up straight. It turns out people just want to be treated with dignity. Who knew? Like, so we gave these guys and they started standing with dignity. They became our biggest evangelists. They were telling everybody who listened that Voyons rocks and they were Voyonnais. And then calling them Voyonnais was the second stroke of genius in that, you know how Taylor Swift has the Swifties and Beyonce has the Hive? We created a tribe of evangelists. And funny enough, our swag, our gear, ended up being a product in itself. Our customers started saying, hey, I want a Voyonnais cap, I want a t-shirt. We started having a SKU for just our apparel. That became like an amazing new business line that actually took us through some of the tough times, you know? So, and also by the time we went to these big retailers, we said, listen, we've got guys selling Borovos rolls outside your stores. They're looking kind of dodgy. Look at our guys, right? Great shirts, great smile, and an amazing product. Can we sell instead of the people who are selling outside? And they would say, well, those dodgy guys are actually our staff members. So that was awkward, but luckily they saw the lines and they allowed us to sell. And before you know it, our guys are doing between 50 and 60,000 rand a month selling all of our rolls, and they're running their own businesses. So in 2013, I ran a business that was asset light. I kept no stock because the big retailer had a butchery and a bakery, so they would give them our recipe, so they would make our balls and our balls for us, so we kept no stock. The guys were making 50, 60,000 rands for themselves, so they're self-employed, so I paid no salaries. I paid no rent because the space belonged to the big retailer. Best business model, the holy grail. Business where you could make money even if you weren't there. And then the retailers figured out how much we were making, they kicked us out, they put back their own guys. You know, 60 grand a month times by 12. The Greek guy can take his entire family on holiday to Greece with that money. But as Zulu Maka plans, I co-founded an association of food trucks called the Mother Truckers, and I don't know if one person got that. So, what we did was all those trucks that you saw first was like a million rand that went over there, 600K. Mine was an old VW Combi and it cost us 125K to build. And it was these old VW Combis because VW stands for Wheels Box, obviously. Or my personal favorite was Volkswagen. And so we cut off the roof and we sell from there. And as you can see, we rent queues longer than Capitec at month end. And the reason for that, as assistant engineer, I worked out that people stand in the queue because I assume that the guy in front of them must know why the guy in front of them is standing there. So people are sheep, right? And in fact, that's probably why it's called leadership. So what I would do is I would stand here and I would listen to my team lead because I worked out that the queue would be around 19-20 deep. About 20 people drop off, below 19-20 they stick on to the queue. But they'll stick in the queue, but they'll never go to an empty food truck. So energy begets energy. No one goes to an empty anything, right? So I worked out that 19 it was the magic number. So if the queue dropped below 19, I give my gorilla a special whistle and you start drilling slowly so that the queue goes back to 1920. If it was about 1920, I'll give him a different whistle and it'll drill faster and the queue will go back to 1920. Our queues always stay 1920 deep because energy begets energy, EMC squared, right? I'm giving you energy. You know how hard it is to present at this time of the day. It's amazing. And you must know what I'm talking about, right? Because even in your work, there's people who just suck up their energy. You know what I'm talking about? If you don't, you're probably in that WhatsApp group of the people who suck up their energy, right? And other people infuse energy. I mean, I used to have this staff member, I was so afraid of her in one of my restaurants. I had to sit outside and psych myself up to go into my own restaurant. Or there was this other one who really speaks every time you walk. I'm like, Joe, you have one job, do your own boat. Like, I don't help you calm your own body, right? So, energy is massively important. As much as I'm giving, I'm going to get it back. It's a dual thing, right? So, when we open new stores, that's exactly what I did. To get the energy, I get my aunts, cousins, and whoever, get them to sit down and give them the food, but they can't eat it. Until then, customers are like, oh, my God, why are they eating? And then I wait 30 minutes and then reheat it. Microwave is your friend. No free lunch, right? Energy begets energy. So in 2019, I sold Vuyo's. I sold the business and I had this private equity. I had this private equity guys and said, look, we love what you're doing, we'll buy it from you. And I was like, what about you now? Yeah, I was semi-retired and I think I was still sort of young, 35-ish. and I've been walking and people were like, hey, Vuyo, but I'm not Vuyo anymore. It's like, so I was half pregnant, I didn't know what to do, So I happened to watch this movie called Black Panther. How many of you have seen that movie? Right? And in it there was a city called Wakanda, and this is where all the Avengers and superheroes are coming to Africa to steal our technology. It was the first time I'd seen Africa portrayed on such a positive light on such a global stage, right? I mean, I was like, I was so excited. So when I left, I probably trademarked the word Wakanda. I think that Vuyo's worked out great, so why don't let's repeat, recycle now at a global stage, right? That's exactly what I did. When I left the movie house, I trademarked the word Wakanda, and about 18 months later, I get a call from Disney, who owns Marvel Studios, that produced the movie Black Panther. They were working on the sequel called Wakanda Forever, and they were in post-production when they discovered that I now own the word Wakanda, right? Long story long, my words, everywhere, backwards and forth, we settled on $3.5 million that they paid me to use the word Wakanda. I'm kidding. Or Emma, it's called NDA people, I can't confirm or deny. I'm just mitigating risk here, okay? So what we do at Wakanda is this. Can I get volume?
And when you usher in a creative entrepreneur who can bring all of that together, magic happens.
These entrepreneurs who are willing to take risks, willing to fail, willing to try over and over and over again, are for me the greatest hope for solving the grand challenge.
Getting instant feedback. You get feedback from customers, from faculty who are expert in that domain, and from pretty much any kind of stakeholder you could possibly meet.
What we're doing with our entrepreneurs is we're surrounding them with the best possible networks. Mentors, advisors, corporate partners, funders.
We were promised a personalized, tailored accelerator program, and that's exactly what we received.
We're trying to evaluate the character, the personality of that entrepreneur founder, because that is going to inform the values, the culture, and ultimately the success of the enterprise.
Business strategy, funding strategy, go-to-market, you name it, we do it.
This has allowed us to take a moonshot idea, identify how to bring it into the market, and then take that impact and scale it up to a global company.
We want them to see themselves as leaders and creators of change. We want them to build companies that actually matter in the world, that make things better for governments, societies, countries, cities.
So what we do, thank you. What we do at Wakala, we find these amazing food creators and we bulletproof them. It's basically it's what I wish I had when I started my food business, coming from tech and didn't know anything. So for example, this is one of our alumni entrepreneurs. This is Dr. Tracy. She's a medical doctor by training. And in fact, she's one of South Africa's youngest doctors. And I discovered this after working with her for about a year and a half before I found out that she's actually one of South Africa's youngest doctors. And I was like, how do I not know this? How could you not tell me this? And she told me something that always stuck to me. And she said, for her, it was always about the goal, not about the role. So for her, it was always about purpose, what she's here on this planet for, not her title, which is something I see everywhere. You know, people now lead by themselves, they call each other by their titles. And like, her mission was more important than her title. And her Bob and Limpopo told her that if she grants baobab seeds and amarula seeds, it makes the most amazing plant-based dessert. And that's what she does. She makes these alternative plant-based products. So you can't call it like ice cream because it doesn't have dairy, but she makes these butters, and again, you can't call it butter, but it's all these alternatives to dairy-made products. So this is, in fact, that picture is the before and after. It turns out a lot of people, particularly Black South Africans, are lactose intolerant, and it presents in weight gain issues, and they don't even know. They think it's in the genes, meanwhile it's in the cupboard, you know? So, that's a before and after picture. But this is her and her son, Nani, who the dessert is named after, seeing the product on shelf for the first time in a big retailer after we worked with her for about a year.
Así dulu. Dengar. Why is my heart beating faster? Oh my gosh.
Mommy's ours, so we can take it for free, right? Why that matters is that that young man is going to grow up knowing that his mom is boss. He's going to grow up knowing that his palate matters. He's going to grow up knowing that he too can employ people and create a bigger, better South Africa. And it was around the same time the president came on TV and said it's level 5, lockdown, and we must stay at home. But I've never been one to ask for permission, so we printed those essential services certificate. We photoshopped the hell out of it. We're making it rain. And I just built these amazing facilities, I had chefs, entrepreneurs, and now we're told to stay at home. I was like, no way. We rolled up our seats, we went to the communities we come from to discover people were hungry. There was no food. We rocked up the first day, we fed 300 people. The next day it was 350. Before you know it, between 1,000 people a day. And then an organization called SA Harvest that rescues food from big retailers, the sell-by day food, and gives it to community-based organizations, saw what we were doing, and they co-opted me to join the board. And as of the last 5 years, we've now done over 110 million meals that we've given to communities. One thing though, what you realize when you go into a community to help is like the smiles, the appreciation that people give you. If you're seeing a shrink, take the $1.5 grand and buy stuff and go to a community. That will do more for you than the people you are giving whatever you're giving them to. Because it's just like, it's the most amazing drug, right? So the appreciation, the anticipation, are we going to see you again? When are we going to see you again? And if you don't come, it's like, hey, where were you yesterday? I'm like, Joe, I've got a full-time job, you know? So, but before you know it, you've created entitlement. And more, or even worse, you've created a dependency. People are now sitting and waiting for you, right? It's called a toxic charity because charity turns out to, doesn't solve the problem, it actually sustains it. You know, because unfortunately charity attracts people with great hearts, but not so much on the cerebral part, right? Because the cerebral people are here, they'll rather take 10% of their income and donate it to charity. Right? But me as a systems engineer, this bothered me because if you 10 people today, there's 20 tomorrow. I was like, surely, where are they coming from? I mean, South Africa, we're not a fully secure country. How come 19 million South Africans are going to bed hungry every night? I didn't know this because like you, I live in a bubble, and my bubble works. And just because I'm black, I assumed I knew what being black and being poor is. Turns out there's labels to this thing. And also, the reason why I've like never seen people strike for food, it turns out striking for food is embarrassing. People won't tell even their neighbor. So they used to be able to go borrow acha next door, but so you can't borrow acha even next door. So this problem bothered me so much that my team and I started figuring out, like, we see the problem, but where's it coming from? Where's the root cause? What's the first principles behind the issue? So we sat down and we looked at this. It turns out in a 20 kilogram bag of maize meal costs 7 rand 50 per kilogram. But in a half a kilogram, it's almost double. So if this food is twice as expensive by smaller your pack size. We all understand it in reverse because of economies of scale. Things are cheaper by bulk. We all get it. But that works out great if you're on this side. If you're poor, it means food is twice as expensive. That's why it's almost impossible to get yourself out of poverty. Because this doesn't just apply to food, even though it's a big part of someone who's poor's basket is food and transport and all these things. But it applies to everything. Right? So if you're poor, you subsidize everybody else in middle income and above, because just by the base of the pyramid. So knowing the problem and doing something about it is two different things. So the question to us was, how do we solve for this problem? And this is what we came up with.
Dwalisa, meaning fill up, are branded refill dispensers that allow customers to buy the amount of everyday products they can afford with the money they have available when they need it at the right price.
I think it's a good idea because like us, sometimes you broke, you can't afford the pack, so if at least someone can just come to this cup of tea and everything is set from one rand, oh God, everyone can afford that.
I think it's the best if you get your refill than to buy with the packet. Yeah. If you don't make enough money, you can buy it small, 2 rand for a flour, 2 rand for the sugar.
So I'm busy driving around in Alexandra in Johannesburg, and I find this really dope shop on the side of the road, like Alex. If you check how they operate, I think this is pretty cool. Bring your own skaftin or buy a reusable glass jar from us. They refill your container with your selected products, and then you pay depending on your weight. So for people that can't afford to buy certain grocery products from the get, and they have all these really dope products that we use on a daily basis to eat. If you look up there, there's other products as well. And then here is most of the grain products, sugar products that we eat every day. It's pretty dope. Come here with your container, they give you a container.
So what we do at Dwalisa, we sell every item at unit item. Tea bag 50 cents, eggs usually $2, $3. But everything, for 186 cents, we'll sell you flour, whatever you want for the amount of money as opposed to what the pack size is. Then at the same time, load shedding happened, and this is how dark it is in Alex during load shedding. And we literally using solar, and you can't be in a community and be the only one saying khali and everybody else is in the dark. So that wasn't cool for us. And what we did was, the next version of Dwalisa, we increased the amount of solar panels. This was version 3, we increased the amount of solar panels. Now we reticulate electricity to the houses around us, to the 15 houses around us. So people pay 5 rand per load shedding hour, because load shedding hasn't gone away in the township. It's not called load reduction. Again, poor people subsidize everybody else. The reason why there's lights incentive, because Alex doesn't have lights all the time. So their load is reduced in order to make sure that everybody else across the highway has lights. So we did exactly the same thing. We gave the young people bright yellow shirts. This time it's G-Star. It's recycle. And now they install the panels, clean them, and we, like I said, we reticulate electricity to the 15 houses around us. But most importantly, it teaches people to now pay for energy. This is what our Dwalisa now looks like. This is version 7. So we do food, energy, water, and health. So our Dwalisas now have fridges, so you can come get your chronic medication script for your diabetes or your ARVs along with the food component. And they also have free Wi-Fi. They're using about that is that the girls use the Wi-Fi to do homework and the boys pay PlayStation. I can assure you 10 years from now, our gender-based violence issues are going to be astronomical. So what I've learned in my journey as I conclude is to have the humility to listen with your eyes. Because great solutions don't come from boardrooms. Great solutions come from the base, from the bottom up, not top down. Because I can tell you, whoever designed this slide or this play area was in a boardroom. They said, let's build a slide for children. And it turns out, look at how the children are using the slide. They're using everything but the slide. So what I'm hoping I leave with you is that many opportunities are hidden in plain sight. My journey is about life and spotting opportunities that are hidden in plain sight. But the trick is to have the humility to listen with your eyes. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to say thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.